Okay, so ended up not going over the pitch deck today. I was lucky enough though to get an email from him because I told him, hey, the guy from this, firm messaged me back and I'd like to strike while the iron is hot and while I'm still on his mind and send him something. So he sent me an email with feedback about the pitch deck, and I thought I might as well go through all of this feedback just because I think it'd be cool to go through all of that and then maybe, I don't know, do like speed run of my pitch deck and just record myself as I edit it. We'll do that. All of the feedback though is pretty, there's nothing crazy. I don't think there's anything crazy, like nothing that isn't said in other places. Just, I think, good reminders for me, because I think I started at one place, then I swung to a different side of the spectrum, and I need to be somewhere in the middle. So we'll get into it. Slides 2 and 3. So slides 2 and 3 is the problem slide, and then the transition slide. I'll include those on the screen as I'm talking through these. So he says, I'll just read his 2 bullet points for these 2 slides. So he said, in addition to articulating the problem in narrative form as you do in slide 2, try quantifying it in some way to show how big it is. Is there some survey data that points? What about data that you've gathered yourself? Is it a question of loneliness or connection or additional opportunity when people have more couple friends? What's the engine that's driving people to be fanatical about this app, and what data shows that rather than just the narrative? And he said this is probably a slide in addition to slide 2. So we've got like a slide that describes the narrative and then a slide that quantifies, scale. And the second bullet point he said was, I actually just noticed that you said Pairs has 100% support from 100% of couples. That's getting at what I'm talking about. Could you elaborate what happened there? What did they commit to? Did they indicate willingness to download, to use consistently, to pay? Basically sounds like I need to go back to something that I had done, I think in my first pitch deck, to be honest. When I was first making the pitch deck, I had put together slides of like, here's market trends, and here's all this data, because I watched a video that said people like data. Then I took those slides out, but it sounds like they're helpful slides, especially when trying to talk to somebody and explaining how big the problem is that we're trying to solve and what the market opportunity is. I think I'm going to attack this by bringing some of that data back in terms of what the size of the market is and what's the demand. In all honesty, I think that the biggest indicator is the fact that dating apps are wildly successful and they're growing. Like the dating app market is growing because people want to meet people and they don't want to do it the conventional way of like at a bar or whatever. They want to meet somebody online. And once those people are in relationships, those are still people who want to meet others online and they still want that connection. And couples, once you're in a relationship, you still want friends. So that doesn't ever stop. So I'll have to put that back in there somewhere, probably in between slides 2 and 3. So we'll have like a description of why it's hard to make friends, then a description of how big that market is, and then the transition slide. Okay, so then feedback about slide 4. If I remember, title slide, problem slide, transition slide. Slide 4 is like the solution, and I've got screenshots of our app and from the MVP that we had. So here's his bullet point for slide, or his bullet point comment for slide 4. He said, I think this is a reasonable way to show an interesting user experience. One thing that would make this more compelling is if you were to show me some viral engine that drives massive adoption built into the app. As you know, Match.com has several hundred million users and are currently worth $10 billion. Assuming you can monetize as well as they have, let's say you need at least tens of millions of users to get to your $1 billion outcome for venture investors, what gets you there? And I think this speaks to the thing that I had mentioned a few videos ago, which is we need a feature or we need a something that's going to drive virality, or that's going to just make people want to share the app and spread it, and it's just going to go huge. I don't know what that feature is yet, but I still, in the back of my mind, just believe that the product itself, if marketed well and if brought to the right, early adopters, that just the idea, people want that so much that it will just take off by itself. So how I show that in that slide, not sure, but I'll have to keep thinking about that one in terms of like building in features that are going to drive massive adoption. Slide 5 was the slide about the investors, so the call to action slide, and he's got a couple of bullet points, and I'll read through all of these. So first bullet point, he said, I'd make this slide into where we're at currently. And he said, I didn't catch this until the second time through that you already have an app in the app stores. Okay, so there's too many words on that slide. And he didn't even catch that we had got an app on the app store this last year. He said, great, talk about that and what the user reaction has been. We don't have users because the app doesn't really work, but that was bullet point 1. 2, he said, I'd cut out that you set up an LLC, that's totally fine, but venture investors will need you to convert to a C Corp anyway for a variety of reasons. And setting up the company itself doesn't really move the needle. Keep that slide to talking about traction. So I put it in there, whatever. Yeah, that didn't matter. The third bullet point, I think the phases are, as described, are not super compelling either. So I had like different things. He said, I talk about this a little more in the overall feedback down below, but venture investors really want to feel like they're pouring gasoline on a fire, not that they're giving you the actual enabling power to realize a vision. Large ad campaigns before product market fit scare me a little bit because we need to prove the unit economics are there or risk sending good money after bad. All I got from that one was investors want to feel like they're pouring gasoline on a fire, not giving you the enabling power to like complete a vision. And this was my fear all along, and I've been thinking about this one a lot just because I 100% understand where the investor is coming from in that scenario, but there's something about me that just doesn't like that. Like, I want someone to invest in that enabling vision and believe in the company before it's even started. I want someone to see the value and believe in it as much as I do, which I know is an unrealistic request from a venture investor. But yeah, this is what makes me feel like we're just going to end up doing this ourselves anyway. Is we have zero traction, we have zero money coming in, no cash flow, so nobody's going to be interested because they want to pour gasoline on a fire, and we don't even have a fire. We have kindling, but no fire yet. So we'll see. The last bullet point for slide 5, though, it's probably fine, but struck me as a bit unusual to call out Tandem specifically in the slide. Most entrepreneurs will pitch 10 to 100 venture investors to get funding, and they usually have one deck. That said, if you specifically call out why Tandem is a perfect fit with unique insights, I think that would be helpful. So I thought that was a good thing to add, but I guess that's not, and that's weird, so I'm going to take that off. And then he just had a little bit of, here's a little section, slides that he thought might be missing. So 1, what is the go-to-market strategy? This app needs like a viral engine of some sort. Can you articulate what things you're planning to do? And then 2nd, what's the monetization strategy? So he said it doesn't have to absolutely be nailed down, but a slide articulating how this thing will make $100 million in revenue will be very helpful. So those 2 slides, I think I had in my first pitch deck, and I took them out. And now I'm putting it back in. Regression, that is the theme for my pitch deck abilities. I'm probably have to go back and add those slides in. So then he had, looks like 3 bullet points of just overall recommendations or thoughts, and so I'll read those. First one, he said, I want to be clear that venture capital path is one way of creating a successful company. It's far from the only way. My guess is you don't need to be a $1 billion company to be a massive success. For most entrepreneurs, any 8-figure exit is pretty life-changing. You could potentially avoid venture capital altogether and create something that is very meaningful for you and your co-founder. I know it's tempting to think of, but we need the money to build a vision. And he said, my 2 responses to that are A, there is money available other than venture capital, which is a very particular type of money, playing a very particular type of game, whatever that money is. And B, the tools available today make it really possible to create traction with little or no capital, especially with software plays, which I agree with. And that honestly is our backup plan, is we're just doing this ourselves with no venture and maybe doing that forever until we scale really big. Second bullet point for overall feedback. Just based on the above point, I think you'll get this sense, but the really big thing I'm hoping for from this deck is for it to be thickened up with concrete data on the market and the market need, traction, where you're at, and strategies and tactics for taking it to $100 million in revenue. Many early founders think of venture capital is, Many early founders think of venture capital is funding and enabling an idea that otherwise would not happen. Oh, okay, so you're saying. What you need to show is how it's happening anyway, no matter what, and it's an opportunity for them to invest in something that's already succeeding as we speak. Ooh, this one's hard for me because I feel like this is not being done. Like, you don't see anybody making this specific play, making a play to design essentially a dating app for couples, where couples sign up and it's targeted at couples and having couples make friends with other couples. I don't see that play being made anywhere, so it's really hard to show that this is happening anyway. I guess I can say it's going to happen anyway because I'm going to do it. If they don't invest, I'm the one doing it, and I'm going to get the traction. So I guess it's happening anyway, but not from anybody else. It's happening because of me. And then his last bullet point for overall feedback was, don't think of the first pitch as the end of the road. And even if he ends up being a no right now, you can absolutely stay in touch and show progress. It will be much more exciting to investors if you figure out a way to make progress without much financial backing. That illustrates the power of the team and of the opportunity. Lots of investors want to think of their funding as going to support an idea that the market is already pulling forward, not being the enabling factor. Which honestly makes a ton of sense. And my wife and I were talking about this in the car a little bit ago. We do think it is going to be a no right now because we don't have any traction and we don't have users. And so they're not pouring gasoline on a fire, they're pouring gasoline on kindling. And then they're also helping us light the match, I guess. So we don't have a market pulling this right now. And I think that's probably a more likely scenario for this entire thing, is we create a pitch deck, we send it to them, they say, that sounds like a good idea, but you have no traction and nothing to show for it. And we'll say, okay, just watch. And then I'll just keep in touch with these guys on LinkedIn, or I'll send them emails and say, hey, we just launched. Hey, it's been a couple months and we're at 1,000 users now and we're getting really good feedback from our user base. Hey, we just soft launched in another city or in another state, and here's how that's going. And then once we give them enough proof that the traction's there, that the market's there, then they'll bite and they could, take our little pile of kindling with a little fire and pour gasoline on it, and then this thing just explodes. So there you go. I'm not sure how helpful that is to anybody else who's building pitch decks, primarily because this is advice for my pitch deck, but I think in the next couple of videos, I'll try and explain my thoughts as I edit the pitch deck. And so you'll see my first version and the middle version with, you'll have to hear the feedback for that too. And then my final version, I'll probably send that back to him and maybe do a couple more iterations. But yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching this one, and we'll see you guys in the next video.